is how you held a conclave of an election. I wonder whether there was an election inside there that led to the announcement of Honorable Robert Chagulanyi as the party president, the same top leadership returning.
What is intriguing people out there, or what is intriguing you?
Okay, I'm one of the people.
Okay.
I'm one of them.
Can I use this opportunity to tell you that when we advertise for positions for which people would express interest, the position of the president was among. Okay? Positions were mentioned: president, secretary general, spokesperson. Okay? So if no one else expressed interest other than Chagulanyi, do you blame it on the party for not having elections over that position?
Oh, they were
because we advertised. Yes, we advertised in the national media. Okay.
No, you went behind closed doors.
No, we advertised.
An hour or 2 hours later, there was an announcement from the party spokesperson.
If you had a misinformation, and if you want to understand it like that, you can keep your information. You understand
what happened?
You can keep your understanding. Let me
for the benefit of our viewers.
Let me clarify to your viewers that National Inter Platform advertised in a national media that these are the positions for which elections will be conducted, and they were mentioned one by one, from presidency up to the last position, and persons expressed interest. Now, in our party, we had a multi-dimensional approach. One, we used harmonization. Would sit down people. Do you want to go for an election, or you can come to a compromise and be able to either one will give away to the other or go for an election. We did that for so many positions. Up the last minute, one of the positions for which we had the harmonization was the position of a spokesperson, where Honorable Sewanyana had chosen to run together with the Right Honorable Senyonyi. Okay, so the position of the president was among the positions that had been advertised, and I want to tell you, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu expressed interest. He was nominated. He expressed interest.
He merged unopposed.
And went through unopposed. That's what it was.
If
anyone else desired to compete with him, we would have gone through the process the longer we did with other positions. But you people, you just want to put it in your mind. I don't know how you want to understand it, because if we advertised, called for expressions, people came. They even campaigned, by the way. There was campaigning. There was casting of votes. What do you call a democracy? For me, that's a democracy. One thing that Honorable Semuji has not been able to appreciate, and other members here, that whereas the law calls for, when at the time of party is being registered, they call for national character. You should have people who support you, who will second you across board. Okay. The qualification for those people is that they should be nationals and they should be voters. Okay? There's no qualification that says they should be party members. Okay? One should not assume that, and this one I'm not speaking it for NUP, I'm speaking generally, this is what it is. One should not assume that the fact that the person was able to get signatures from Kabera Maido for this party to be registered, therefore this party has members there with cards. Because being a party member is different from a party supporter. Okay, there are several people who support parties and they don't have the membership cards. Having a membership card to be able to be called a party member is different from being a supporter. Now, what have we gone through all these 5 years? Okay, whenever we have tried to go out, sell our party cards, okay, mobilize people, what has happened is that police has raided our offices. They have attacked us. They have stopped our mobilization programs. And those people are saying, where are they? We didn't see them for the delegates conference. Where are they? We are still struggling to sell cards. Recently, I wanted to give Honorable Mbide information that even that limited time, where you say they're giving us limited time, the last month tail end to elections, even that time is not left uninterrupted. You know, recently they actually raided our offices. Okay, whenever they come, they take every document, every record we have. They break our offices, break our drawers, and take everything with them.
Honorable.
So the People Power Party in court of Honorable Chinobe so much fears a competition with people Do you want to know what has happened during youth elections? Okay? They have made sure they don't give opportunity to other people even nominate. Even a nomination was a very, very big problem for the youth that opposed NRM. They just wanted their youth to go
In what you've gathered so far,
unopposed.
how has NU performed?
Leave alone the election part of it. I followed the process right from the nomination. And I want to tell you, at one time, there is the what are they called? The registrars. We are choosing to keep away from the registration centers just because they didn't want to register people. I have videos where the registrar simply chooses to walk away. They give conditions. Papers are photocopied, stamped at the wrong place, look for nominators. Whereas we didn't see anyone nominating NRM people, they were nominated in full list. Okay? And they made sure nobody else nominates the so-called party that
returns power.
You're not even ashamed, Honorable Chinabe, saying
Thank you. Honorable Semuju.
The time I've been in politics, we've been grappling with the building a democratic party in a dictatorship. When we are still in FDC, the discussion, do we want to be a democratic party that will hold the elections, and then Chinobe will have 50% or 40% of leadership in your structures, or you want to be a revolutionary party fighting for freedom? In the view of General Muntu, he said you cannot give what you don't have, you need to build a democratic institution. In the view of many of the colleagues, we are at war just to exist. Yeah. If you want to go and remember Dr. Wesje, part of the internal debate we had, while we were supposed to have party branches, he said to go and build the Power 10. Because the formal structure of the party, if Chinobe, who is using the state and the state resources, want to capture it, he will capture it.
Chinobe of people power.
Chinobe of NRM power.
No, people power.
People power, NRM people power. The real power. He will go and choose for you leaders. Before you know, they have ISO and ESO and everybody in your structures. So it's something we've been grappling with. But I don't want to use that as an excuse. So even where we should have some elections and we don't have them, I don't want to use that because they will certainly do it.
So parties are hiding under.
Sometimes use it as an excuse, but the environment must also be understood. That attempting to build structures in a formal way where you sell cards. There was a time, that time I think I was still at the university, when people were supposed to be defecting from DP and other parties to NRM. But they were defecting even their own personnel, because all they did was to go and buy DP cards, and then they'll have a very big
t-shirts.
Yes, and then they'll have a very big function at which military people. I have a friend, I will not mention his name here. He was a PA to a minister, but he also brought a DP card to join NRM. He was defecting. When you, Aisha, for you are lucky, they stopped you completely. Sometimes they will allow you and then they will be the one to buy the cards. So you go to a village and everybody holding your card, it works with the ISO. So you call for election, they will be the ones qualifying. So in a way, you also blamed for your bad manners. So you've done so much to injure the democratic processes in Uganda by your own conduct. Sometimes covert and overt. But as I said, I don't want to use the conditions that in which we do politics to become the excuse for all our failures. See, political parties must accept that as institutions, there are also mistakes they have committed.
So
you may not publicly come here on front end and say, for us as PFF, we have committed the following mistakes. But I think to have a delegates conference that the public gets to know when it is sitting, and we do not see the delegates conference being built, for me is a very big problem. it is a very big problem. We must find a way.
Yeah, but you had the explanation from Honorable Aisha that it's a given. Once you're an MP, once you're a leader at a structure level, you automatically become a delegate.
Yeah, but these youth elections that we are going through with all their problems, all parties in the constituency where I am an MP, I have seen each party sitting some meetings and selecting candidates who will participate. The same way you can assemble, because at every village, the youth structure has 9 people who are contesting, from chairman to everybody. So they exist. You cannot tell me that a party structure cannot exist alongside the youth structure that you are building. It is some level of dishonest. You are presenting candidates, 9 of them, to contest for youth. You're also presenting candidates to contest for women. But in that village, you don't have, the party structure does not exist.
Like which party,
the membership.
are you talking about?
I said I will be general for you if you exist.
Because for me, I can speak about my part, how we are constructing.
I am not talking about you. I'm talking about those that don't exist or don't hold the elections. So even under the circumstances
PFF is not there yet.
Of the Chinovese, Badman and interference.
You heard that PFF is not
PFF is not there yet. Is it there yet?
No, we are building.
Yes.
I agree with you, we are building. But I have not witnessed the elections of other parties, at least in my constituency, any other party, other than the NRM.
So how they arrive at delegates is intriguing.
It is a serious matter. We can come here and pretend, but you cannot be a party devoid of internal democracy and then you promise that you will give Uganda democracy. All parties, including mine, will need to constantly build and check themselves. I mean, otherwise we will use these excuses to have the same leaders in perpetuity, that we are being interfered with, we are being doing this, and then they will be the leaders forever. So there must be some standards that allow, because you see, the point Aisha was making, in NRM, they will have a process, massive process, sponsored by all of us. And I think only Museveni and Chigongo will be the ones who are permanently there. But at least they allow Chinove to compete with the Semuju or Mbide.
We even allow nominations against them.
They are not there.
But because of the practice.
Don't go there,
No, wait a minute.
Because that's a ceremony.
The Honorable has told us consensus building and agreeing to have an opposed is also an electoral practice. So why do you think it can only be in one party and can't be employed by other parties?
Yeah, because
we also get consensus. Say no, by the way, we are.
Because for me, I actually think next time you're inviting us for a show, we may need to exclude NRM, so that we don't use NRM as an excuse. We talk about ourselves and how, and then you need to have a copy of each party's constitution, and we go provision by provision.
So
whether we're implementing provisions within our own constitutions.
Well, thank you, Honorable Kena. How much interest do you have in the internal democracy and the processes of other parties? Or you just simply closed into UPC?
No, I am obviously more focused on my own internal process. And
but aren't you envious of parties like the National Unity Platform?
Envious?
Why should I be envious?
They pulled it off and...
No, we're in the process. There are areas, to support Honorable Semuju here, there are areas where I know I am going to struggle to get the structure in place. There are areas I know I'll struggle. There are areas where I am oversubscribed. And else we have to go through a process which is going to now weed out to give us the strongest candidate to field in the general election. I've got some returns, I've been getting returns for the youth election which has taken place in areas where we're quite strong, and the results so far are encouraging. So this is a process, but the building of the democracy is a tedious work. It's not a one-day work. It's not something which can be looked at as this has been achieved.
But under the circumstances, do you think the country is asking too much in demanding internal democracy within parties?
No.
Yet they are hard-pressed by the state.
We are hard-pressed by the state. We are pressed on the issue of I would say the commercialization of the politics, which now brings a huge cost towards the politics. Now, some of the issues which I tried to raise earlier, which I struggled for, was how can we get functional, viable political parties which will carry the voice of the people into these institutions. So my issue which have been fighting within the context of iPod and cross-party issues, how do we strengthen the institutions of political parties? Because for me, whatever way you look at it, political parties are a key ingredient for democracy. The more we work with them, the more we strengthen their processes, the better the outturn will be for all of us.
Well,
so it works that if NRM is more democratic, UPC, PFF, NUP and whatever, the end product which will deliver to the people of Uganda will be positive.
Well, Honorable Bide, just a second, Honorable Aisha.
Okay.
As we head into 2026, how are parties getting there with questionable credentials on internal democracy?
But I think let's tell the public again, that parties have to follow the law. There are two types of political parties in Uganda. There are political parties that were termed as existing political parties under Article 273 before the freedom of political parties, that were in abeyance by Article 269. But there are also parties that were formed under the Act, and they began their journey under this Act. Here we are only two, UPC and the DP.
Even NRM started in 2005.
No, that one was formed under the 2005 Act.
Yours was manufactured.
So I am talking of the Article 273, the existing political parties, UPC and the DP. All parties follow the law. Now, the substantive law is the Political Parties and Organizations Act, particularly at Section 3. When you have to refer to internal organization of political parties, that is the supreme law, not even our constitutions. And this is something that people don't know. That where the constitution, for example, does not provide for certain things, you read the Act, and where the Act contravenes your party constitution, the Act applies with equal force. There is a requirement for national character of all political parties. And I think NRM can use that even to deregister certain parties. It is a requirement.
Honorable Semju argues that it's delusional to make parties appear national.
Yeah, but it is the law.
No, it is Professor Duke, and
it
I
is
agree.
provided
Right,
under the law.
historical context in which
But
we have
what
parties
we are
in the past.
using, and what people must know, is the theory of the directing mind and the will of a political party. For example, the last time I read the UPC constitution, I don't know whether it was changed. The person elected is the president, then you appoint the executive. I don't know whether that is what applies. And that is the theory of the directing mind and the will. That once you arrive at the president of the party, then that wagon now requires to obtain office bearers.
He cherry picks whoever he wants.
I mean, you appoint, there are checks and balances, but the appointment has to be demanded driven by the directing mind and the will of the party. And that is also internal democracy. Then the law also stipulates that at all times, the decision of the members applies with equal force. It is sacrosanct. So, now when you look at NRM, I think, the organizers of the election are almost appointed by the chairman. Because the Secretary General is appointed,
After Mbabazi.
party officials.
All that you know is
All employees of the party
So,
are
hand-picked by the
yes, so
president.
that is the
And paid by him.
So for you to require
Just a second.
Yes, the Central Executive Committee must approve the appointments. It is not single-handed. that
You
the
see,
president-
they
But
told-
we're looking at a
we-
central executive that's not operational.
That's your assumption.
No, it
But
is
we have a
real.
very functional or Central Executive.
Yes.
I think
So-
this debate, the other day when Haji
is
Moses
the only organ
Haji Moses
NRA
Chibongo
which
convened a
is
meeting at
regular.
Musa Court and announced that we are postponing the NRM roadmap. Same day, Museveni was announcing, I am going to launch it tomorrow, and the first person to arrive to receive Museveni was Chigongo, who had postponed. So yours is problematic.
Why?
By the way,
But if you have a
so-
chairperson and you the vice
Who
mayor,
signed your appointment later?
but I was continuing.
Just a second.
Shinobe is
Honorable Shinobe,
recruited by
who
Museveni
signed your
and paid
appointment
by
later?
Museveni.
you want to believe that we don't have
Out of
institutions in
state
the party.
coffers, by the way.
Who
You
signed?
don't know that we have
Honorable
institutions.
Shinobe, who signed your
The
appointment
chief
later?
administrator in the party is the Secretary General.
Who is also appointed by the
On whose
Who is
merit?
also-
On whose merit
Who
were
is
you appointed?
appointed by the president himself. And
That's
he
it.
appoints all the other
No, that's
party
it.
employees.
So what do we have?
But we're talking about appointment of even the candidates and delegates to the party. You talk of NEC. but all the people in your delegates conference are also appointed by the president.
So
for us as employees
which
of the
party?
party,
Like
we are
which
not
party?
supposed to contest in any political office.
The managers of the party are picked by one person.
And
On the whims of
even
one
the
person.
delegates in other parties are also picked by the same person. Where are the checks and balances?
Which parties?
So isn't this an interesting irony?
So Simon,
But anyway,
however much you win, your actions should always be determined by the actions of your opponent. Those that are now claiming for hybrid, almost supreme gladiatorial democracy in political parties that are actually anchoring, they are trying to organize all forces to make sure that we can dislodge this. Because Honorable Chinove needs to be told that, one man once told me that we are being run by a one-party state, which is not true. We are run by a non-party state. It is an aristocracy. Even that party that you call NRM is just a thin veneer. It is just a uniform that they wear towards certain activities and events. But it does not.
But Mr. Anjala,
the president is never scared that NRM can do anything to him.
Mr. Anjala,
Yes.
we are talking about, wait a minute, we are talking about not being able to offer what you don't have. Even if ours is just a semblance of internal democracy, don't you think we are more competent to offer that
you want
than the
to come
parties
in?
which don't
Yes.
even have a
Yes.
portion
Please
of
come
it?
in.
You see, when you were calling for the president, UPC said something, as I envious of NRM parties, like envious?
No.
No,
The way
so
you do.
you are saying NRM. I was like, is there anything to be envious about in the NRM? Is it a party to talk about? This NRM you are praising here, believe me not, it will end the day Museveni will go, okay? It is now surviving by the fact that they are enjoying everything in the state, they have the whole state machinery that supports them. You know who was identifying the youth that stood? It was the Gisos. The Gisos and the Pisos were identifying the youth and registering them.
Is that true?
Yes, I'm telling you. So they are surviving just because
And
they
vetting.
are the
Because
state.
for us,
The electoral
as a party structure,
With due respect to
well,
my
if
senior
you want my
colleague,
information,
whom
Mr.
I
Njala,
respect so
you're
much,
asking me?
believe me not, NRM will end the way UPC ended.
Can Honorable Chinove clarify?
Mr. Anjala,
You might need to.
I want to give you information, and this is
Let me make my
visible
comments.
at every level.
Can I clarify my
Let him
Madam,
chip in for a minute and
We
then you
have
come.
a structure of registrars who are party officials at every village, lower down there. But we also have organs.
We're not the
What of the-
Gisos. They are none. They're
Gisos
public
are
figures.
not part of the party structures.
You see,
Every
Njala,
village.
Yeah, but at the grassroots elections, the
Every-
key mobilizers were
They are not
RDC.
Gisos.
Njala,
They are
I
not
was,
Gisos. They are not RDCs.
The Gisos
We
were
have
saying
structures.
registrars.
I was
Far
in
away.
a
We have
Wakiso.
structures at every level,
I was
right
in-
from the villages in this
Honorable
country,
Chinwe, I was
who
in-
are officials of the Electoral Commission. You can dispute what I was, but
I
let
was
me,
in- I
let
was
me
in-
present what
I
you
was
have,
in
and
Wakiso.
then contest it.
Wakiso Tare Center. The declaration forms of Honorable Seninde Rosemary were being corrected by ISO. Her assistant, who was the entire sender, call Diso Chengera, call. So you are not a party. You are
What
just
are we?
government. You are state.
And
A state.
So, Honorable Aisha, please drive your
Honorable
point home.
Semju is talking about the 2021 ended elections. I'm not even talking about the youth. The Gisos we are saying, register, that one don't register. When I went to a station where they're registering people, the registrar had the audacity to leave the registration area and walked away and left us there with nobody attending to us, simply because I received a call from a Giso to simply walk away. Just leave them there. And in a few minutes, the assistant also went. We are left at the station without anybody to attend to us. And they had nominated every NRM person. So this NRM thing you are saying, it's not a party. Do you know why this law was amended to being called Political Party and Organizations Act? Because the NRM refused to call itself a party. Now, over time, they're accepting their party. They added the O to accommodate the amorphous
Yeah,
thing.
but you can give it to them that they hold grassroots
They
elections.
added,
You see,
Whether shady or whatever, but there is an
and we
election.
even have those
No.
structures.
Courtesy,
The registrars are there.
courtesy of the security system.
Can-
Okay?
can I,
For us,
Honorable
when
Aisha,
you go, they will disperse
Honorable
your
Aisha,
meetings.
do you have youth leagues at the
We
villages?
do have.
How did you create them if the government doesn't allow
We
you to
have
have
youth
them there?
league. Who tells we don't have?
You are saying
Just
there's no
allow
democracy,
us
not allowed,
to assemble
yet-
them. How did we get the candidates? We have the youth league.
How did, then, if
What-
you have all
how
those
do you get
grassroots
that-
roots,
how
how
do
do
you
you
get
turn around and
mistaken?
say you don't have?
No,
You have them where?
how do you get mistaken to think that we don't have youth league? By the way, we even have the elders.
Then why do you
We
turn
have
around to say that
everybody,
the government
okay?
does not allow
We
you
have them.
to have your democratic structures?
Just give
You're only
parties-
incompetent.
Just give
You have those
parties
leagues where you have
space.
MPs. In the areas where they don't have
Just
leaders.
give parties space to participate.
It is like somebody knocking
freely.
you and begins to ask you who has taught you how to limp. You see, that one is an automation. You know, it is automatic that you will limp. When Chinobe knocks NUP, they will limp forward and definitely establish a few things. They can
Honorable Kena, I'd like to bring you in. When you look
I
at
offended him before he
the
comes
contestations,
in. I offended him when I said NRM will end like UPC. That ends nowhere, and he said, I did, what was it?
We have not ended.
We
We're
have not
still
ended.
here.
You know what I'm saying? I'll end like UPC.
Where are you?
At the time of UPC in governance, they were everywhere. And the song was like, yeah, everywhere. But now when you look for them, you'll find them in Lango. They're not everywhere. So even NRM will end and somewhere in Kazo, but they won't be everywhere like they are
I don't
now.
think I can take that lightly.
No,
You
but-
may
but-
come
but-
in.
but I just want to add-
Hold on, you'll come in. Hold
I
it.
have your UPC members in my area.
I know they're there. I recently lost one of my chair near your areas. So we have our members.
No.
And we still remain everywhere. We're not as effective,
As visible
as
as we-
visible, as powerful as we are. But the very fact that what the closest thing you can call to an NRM constitution, item number 1 was the removal of UPC stroke Obote's dictatorship by force of arms. The fact that I am here today in 2025 in NBS studios, I've been a member of parliament, this is my 4th term.
Yeah, but
And UPC is still on the ground.
yeah,
That is testament
but
that
you
we
the-
are not gone.
You are the helm of the party
We are not gone.
Honorable Akena, you have been,
in a very contestable way.
the comparison is between your UPC and the UPC of your dad.
It's a big
And then the
difference.
mother and finally
That's
son.
the
The
comparison.
very fact that we are still able to be here, we're fielding candidates, and we are preparing for 2026 election. For me, it's a testament that this issue that we are gone, we're not gone, we are very much alive. We may not be where we should have been, where we could have been, but we are there despite and all the efforts of NRM. The targeting of UPC. Please, these people who are complaining today, Noop have not even got a quarter of what we got as UPC. We went through a lot. My young brother here, Semuju, at one time we discussed where he was being brought in. I'm trying to now to recall that if Semuju, at that tender age of, was it 12, when we were almost recruited into the NRA, under these guise of, I think that time they were singing Banyanya, Tutoapiga Banyanya, Tutamaliza. I can imagine a young Semuju armed with an AK-47 and comes across an Anyanya called
I was
Akena.
10.
10.
I was 10.
Now imagine yourself with an AK-47, then you find this Anyanya called Akena, son of a bote. What are you going to do to him? Now we have survived that one. We survived it.
Yeah,
We are
but,
still here.
You see, the trouble is that you're also misbehaving. Do you know that I have relatives who disappeared when you're in government?
Okay, as we take a break, Honorable Chinobe, Honorable Chinobe, is there a bare minimum from which we can judge parties when it comes to internal democracy?
No, first of all, let's
Or
agree.
you're simply obsessed with
So,
NRM?
let's agree that whether it will be the NRM today or the other day or any other, we all know that in systems that are democratic, the government in power today has the opposition, which is a government in waiting. We just appeal to the parties, despite the odds, to try to pick up. For example, when the debate of numbers came up, you remember, we said we have 20 million. NOP was very quick to say we have 10 million. UPC said 11. If you ask them for the register of the 10 and 12 million, 2, 3,
Where did you
as
write
it been
UPC?
talked-
Why did
No,
you
no,
sound-
no,
why
but
did you read
the
that?
problem, these people
Where
are
did
terrorists.
UPC say?
You allow them to
Don't
say what you
misquote
want to
me.
say.
Why did you read that?
When the battle of numbers came up, it is in public media. You mentioned you have 10 million. They said
You
you had
raided
over
our
6 or
officers
7.
to carry away our
When you
registers.
ask today where the register
Where?
he says we are
Where
still
did I
zonal
say it?
and region in this area. For us, we are telling you
Where did
our
UPC
register is a public document, and very soon you'll be able to click.
How many adult
When they
Ugandans do we
contested the
have?
numbers, at the time of our
Honorable
primaries,
Shinobe.
a bigger number was even saying that we had
Honorable-
You
excluded
have
them.
20 million.
Honorable Chinobe,
see,
you have
the-
20 million
The interesting
registered
thing,
voters.
the interesting
The
thing with the
adult,
Honorable
just one
Chinobe,
second, Honorable.
after the Kawempe elections, what you are saying here in your internal meeting, Museveni said on the register you had more than 20,000
NRMs
in Kawempe. And he said it in your internal meeting.
Yes.
Where did they go? Did you answer him?
But the 20 million are not supposed to vote in Kawempe.
No, I'm talking about more than 20,000 on your registered
registered
Kawempe.
voters
What
in
we are trying to
Kawempe.
And he
you
was
now.
asking you, where did they go?
There is
Also,
no difference
honorable,
between the purported members of NRM
Whether
and
purported,
PDM up.
And the parties be democratic in a country that is not democratic. And I hope you will allow us to talk about elections of the youth.
If you may,
Because
I'll start with you.
Can a party be
do youth
democratic?
elections really represent anything about
Can a party be
2020?
democratic in a country that is not democratic?
Well, you come off as being democratic.
Struggle.
You must have democratic credentials for you to operate as a party.
If you allow, let me tell you what has happened in Chile. I have even written a petition to the Electoral Commission, called those that I can.
We even petitioned also, but we are not responded
The
to.
first batch of special interest groups election were the older persons and the disabled, people with disability. First of all, these elections, the same way the NRM claims that they have 18 million people.
20 million.
20 million.
More than 50% of the
I'll tell
population.
you, Simon, these special interest groups, the people, older persons, the committee at a village is 5 people. My Namataba, which is the neighboring village, on the register has 7 people. They are supposed to elect 5
among themselves.
but the register has 7. They are the voters. Only 2 will not get positions.
Are those the disabled persons?
Yes, they just go and share.
There are 7 older persons
Oh, yes, they registered
to vote 5.
to vote 5 because the committee is 5. But the parties, how many are we? Because in the last election, those 5, I took them. So the NRM went to bring them in the morning when I had taken them. So you go and fight all the parties. So this mass party, like Chinewe says, they are
The
communist.
people power.
They are communist ideologies that Museveni picked to create an impression that everybody is involved. So the day they were elected, registrars in my area, in many places, did not turn up. They just sat in their offices and they filled the NRM and declared them unopposed. So people went at the places where voting was supposed.
The 7 elders in your village, or
No, I'm talking about the 2 special interest group categories: the people with a disability and the older persons. So the registrars who are supposed to conduct the election from the Electoral Commission, on the day of the election, they did not show up. But they have already filled the forms with NRM.
Honorable, let me give you a case in my constituency. Someone, they took forms to him to sign and they told him these are PDM forms. And then he asked, why is there an NRM logo? And said, no, because it's NRM government. So the poor man signed. They took his form. Later on, an NUP person brings, because he's an opposition person, they took him forms to sign. Said, I've signed similar forms like these ones. Said, no, that was NRM nomination. The poor man had been nominated as an NRM candidate, unknown to him. So NRM simply takes forms to people, those elder persons and the disabled persons.
That's
They're simply
manipulation.
taking forms to people to sign, not
So
knowing what they are signing.
For the youth elections today, in the village where I reside, they were habituated by tear gas, by bullets, because the people assigned to conduct these elections, one of them was a daughter of an NRM councillor, his brother was a candidate. At one stage, he said, we let everybody vote, because they had failed the people, they thought they had enough numbers. And you know, some of the people were brought by NRM were not NRM. So when the riding started, NRM had 300 and PFF had 408. Now they brought a police pickup and they took away the Electoral Commission officials. And that happened.
Is PFF that popular already?
We exist. We are building, but we exist.
The strength of the incumbent.
Yes.
So the neighboring village, same story. you have, well, I have about 56 villages in Ichira, but you have troubles in almost about 15 to 20. Because deliberately, the NRM, in fact, they are the winners of youth elections in Ichira. Because they made sure that either you don't get nominated, where you are nominated, they will find the reasons. There is a village, an NRM person came, because they are the ones conducting elections in the morning. So people came to vote, they said the voting had ended. And even the officials had left.
At what time?
At around 8. They said, here we...
So the NRM people arrived early and were voted before 8. And
they were not there. They were not there. All these are claims. And I worry for the subsequent election, for the elections coming up, the general elections. Because see how you have conducted this first batch of election. First of all, these people who are getting elected, they will be choosing councillors, they will be choosing special interest MPs. But you have, and security. Because at my polling station where I vote from, there was military firing, bullets, police beating people, arresting, because an NRM must win, even where you know that you don't have support.
Well, thank you. Honorable Mbide, how are special interest groups setting the tempo for elections?
The problem with me is that I do not believe in special interest groups. And that is a personal view.
Why?
It's not personal, it is deep.
They are...
Like that. I think it's not personal, it is...
yeah, that's what you think. But
because I'm struggling with Mwang also to convince him. That's why I think.
Let me tell you. For example, there is nothing like affirmative action in terms of women representatives that instead has created political dinosaurs. Persons that have consistently maintained a success story as personal to hold her.
I agree with you.
Number two, when you have got a number of the youth almost within the realm of over, I can say over 60%.
But you lawyers, why don't you help the women? Just 1 second
So-
on that one. Because the Constitution was very clear about
No,
affirmative
you
action.
let me discuss
Oh, I wish
the
they
affirmative
help us.
action. You are one of the women. You
No,
can
I'm
also
saying
help.
you
She's a
lawyers.
beneficiary.
I've said you lawyers. No, I agree with him entirely, by
so
the way.
if 70% cannot vote for themselves, me, in my opinion, other than the numbers, what else can you use to vote for yourselves? To the extent that you require now some semblance of what they call affirmative action. But it is a principle of this government that it is a principle of puppetry that is usually established, and the task force mentality. The leadership of Uganda looks at everything by way of task force mentality. That if you were to get, for example, a presidential advisor on ghetto affairs, you pick somebody from the ghetto. Now that one is a task force lens, because you are picking a victim. Now to advise you on how, for example, to uplift the ghetto, because the fellow is a victim. It's like picking some victim of some health condition in Mulago Hospital to be a presidential advisor on how, for example, not to contract the health problem that fellow, that victim has contracted. In Uganda, it is a system of puppetry. The president believes in a task force. He believes that every village needs a minister. And this is where the UPC government would beat every other government that has been here. There was, I think there was a module called civics where one would even learn about the ministers. Minister of Information, David Anyote. Minister for this, and broadcasting. So it did not matter whether your village has a minister that you would expect services. Today, every village wants to be declared a district if it is to access services. Every village needs now a minister appointed. In fact, now we have reached a stage where every party needs now a ministerial appointment if it is to also obtain some kind of prebendal resources. Now, I am telling you, this is anomalous. It is an anomaly. If we think this is a proper system of government, where the president is the puppet master and every institution of government is actually a muppet, that in the judiciary, this is what happens. You have been telling me that even the Institute of Internal Security Organization itself, the cross-sectional command structure of the organization is also a system of puppetry, right from village level. Now the youth, the president wants, like Honorable Samujua has been saying, they want now again themselves
okay.
to...
So,
for me, that
NRM has carried the day on special interest groups.
They are
contentiously.
So, okay, they are special interest groups. What is the special interest? The special interest is they must be tools of the aristocracy being established. What is the aristocracy? A government by a group of people, not a political party.
Okay. Special interest group elections are setting the tone for adult suffrage elections.
I would call it you call it an election. I personally call it a choreography. It is just some maneuver of some sort. There's going to be no election time.
Okay. Honorable Chinabe,
I think he's entitled to the opinion. I don't know whether it's his or it's a party.
No, it is mine. In the limit, I stated it is personal.
You need to understand that part of the reasons why we advanced that area of thinking is because of the history of our country. And remember, if you remember the Constitution, those affirmative provisions are supposed to be evaluated after every period to see whether you may need to...
Have we evaluated them?
The age limit. And
not
those
the
ones went,
affirmative
but
action.
the affirmative action is main.
And affirmative action had a time limit, 10 years.
When we didn't remove the clause into the Constitution, it means after another period of time, those after us, those after us who will have the
small information so that you address me on this. When we went to multi-party and you maintained an election of the soldiers, so when do we campaign in the army so that we can also get members of parliament?
The special interest groups components are guided by the Constitution. If they need those representations, finally...
So which party accesses?
For example, when the DP gets into power, it will use its majority and phase it out.
Which would
yes, because the DP does not believe in it. When we are still in it, we believe that all across the sections, give them an opportunity. If you are talking about ghetto people, the ghetto person understands the ghetto much more than anybody who comes and looks at it from the screen as we're looking at the screen. That's why you pick somebody from one of them and you share their views.
And how constructively
we go on engaging. Well, that's an ideology that we follow as a party, all-inclusive politics, but every party is entitled.
Do you celebrate them with the mad rush for picking forms and returning them, expressing interest to stand at various political positions? But beneath all this is something, the big elephant in the room, about internal democracy within the party that has come, within the parties, that has come to a big test. With quite a number of questions emerging from the recently held processes, starting with the Democratic Party that had quite a dramatic and chaotic delegates conference. Then the spotlight shifted to the National Unity Platform, whose delegates conference equally had a number of questions. The Democratic Front has also announced that towards the end of this year, rather this month, they will be holding a delegates conference, one of a kind. The party in its early stages. But at the same time, UPC is also on the radar as Dennis Enap, one of the contenders for the UPC presidency, drags the UPC president, Honorable Jimmy Akena, to court, questioning the manner in which the delegates conference, rather the village elections, were held in Lango. The big questions that arise: one, are parties preaching water and drinking wine in aspiring to be democratic, yet fail on the democratic credentials? And what impact does this have as we gear up to 2026 elections? Joining me tonight is Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda, Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality, and the spokesperson of PFF. Good to have you, and a very good evening.
Thank you, Simon. And to those who are following this program.
In our behind the scenes chat, I was asking, what's your party symbol? Do you still flash the V or?
The V, which is a victory sign, is universal. You are required under the law when you're registering a party to reserve a symbol, but those things sometimes they end there. And then you can pick on something else that is more popular, that is universal. So we are still using the V sign. This is a universal symbol.
Still using blue as your color, still using V. You only ditched the key for the phone.
Yeah, because that's more specific. And the Electoral Commission would never have allowed us to register a political party that has symbols similar to those on their register.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Major Chinove, James, Ambassador. Retired, yes. One of the commissioners at the NRM's Electoral Commission. Good to have you and a very good evening.
Thanks, Simon, and greetings to our viewers. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Honorable Fred Mukasambide, the man who works with his dictionary. Good to have you. The Vice President of the Democratic Party. You're serving your second?
This is the
third. Third.
Yes.
Controversially.
No, depending on who is describing. You know, they say a bat hangs itself upside down, but scientifically it believes when it sees you walking upright, it begins to think you are the one walking upside down. It is usually dependent on who is describing, but there was no controversial. I equally also greet my colleagues, and Simon, thank you for always considering to invite me. Good evening, viewers.
Well, good to have you. Honorable Aisha Kamanda, the Deputy Secretary General of the National Unity Platform. Nice to have you, and a woman member of Parliament for Butambala. I hope you've returned your expression of interest, or you're retiring.
It's my pleasure being here. Hi, and good evening, viewers.
Thank you. The President of the Uganda People's Congress, the Red Party, Honorable Jimmy Akena. Nice to have you, and a very good evening.
Thank you very much for hosting me. It's great to be here.
Who owns Red? Is it you or Noop?
Ugandans.
The Red has been at least defined as far as UPC is concerned, which is the lifeblood of the nation. It's also our national flag, so it is something which is part and parcel of all of us.
Perhaps I should actually start with you. Today, we were served with a copy of a court petition challenging the manner in which you conducted village elections that would elevate you to the presidency of Uganda People's Congress. What's your take? From Dennis and up.
Now, one, I cannot go into the detail because I think that will be sub judice. If I am a subject of a case which has been filed, it will be sub judice. What I can tell you is that as UPC, we are preparing for the general election. The processes within the party will be followed to the detail. We have constitutional requirement. The first stage for presidential candidate is to get 1/3 of the endorsement of the district conferences, which we are going to go through. But we have also used this opportunity to get some other work done in that we are now preparing for the general election. So we're putting our house in order and putting all the opportunities which are available to us to work using this campaign period to organize ourselves. So that is going to proceed. There's, I don't see any hindrance why we should not proceed ahead. But everybody, whoever feels aggrieved, has an opportunity to go and look for regress through the
What explains the irony that you announced village, rather countrywide elections, and instead you concentrated on conducting elections, village elections in Langwa region?
No. When we announced the countrywide election, we announced a timetable. We do not have access to the coffers, or the national coffers, where some other parties have, where they want to hold it on the same day. We cannot hold it on the same day. We are limited with the resources available and also the human resource. So what we announced was a systematic way in which we're going to go through that process. And region by region, we're going to go through and we're going to complete the process. Some regions have more candidates, have more issues which to deal with, but it's not limited to one particular area. The elections are ongoing and they're going to continue ongoing until we complete the process.
Well, very interesting. Honorable Semuju, I could start with you. I believe you've closely watched.
I thought you had started with President Yakena.
You've closely watched everything unfolding within political parties. Democratic Party started the chapter of a very contentious delegates conference, then followed NUP. We're now looking at the UPC. What do you read between the lines on how parties are conducting themselves internally?
You see, the political parties in Uganda, many of them are still built around individuals, many of them. And because, and I said here when we had issues within our former party, the FDC, that the NRM, with all their shortcomings, they would at least announce a program, organize elections and cheat them. But at least there will be a trail that they went through elections. The 16 years I have been in FDC, we are organizing elections. And you will know that village elections are going to be conducted on this day, and they will be conducted. And then those elections will lead to formation of committees at all levels, sub-county, districts, the National Delegates Conference, and we will elect leaders until when the NRM interfered with that process. In the party where I am now, the People's Front for Freedom, we will have interim arrangements because we have just been registered. But we will go and have those elections from villages to many of the parties. You hear them holding delegates conferences. You don't hear them holding elections from village. I am happy the Honorable Akena said they're going to have village elections. For parties, the requirement in the Constitution and the Political Parties and Organizations Act, the requirement is that you must be internally democratic. You must also, at the registration which you have just gone through, you must be national in character. And that national in character is measured by your application to register being endorsed by 50 people from at least 2/3 of the country. But we need to be honest with ourselves that some of the parties, they exist in some regions, some sub-regions, and they don't exist throughout the country. I remember the last time we had a meeting here, I will not mention the district, people will be angry with me. We had a sub-region whose delegates, I was told they were from Kampala. And in fact, when we were planning, we hadn't planned for them. But they showed up, and you have to provide transport refund, to accommodation.
Only to realize that they're still within.
That they are just here. Professor Joko appeared before a parliamentary committee on legal and parliamentary affairs that was processing the Political Parties and Organizations Act. I'm not sure that was in 2000, but before the parties eventually returned. And he said it is redundant to have a requirement in the law requiring parties to be national in character. He said the tribal party is okay. A one theme party is okay. He said a party that wants to take over power in Uganda will, as of absolute necessity, be national. But he said all parties are not interested in taking power. You can have a party that is pursuing one issue, like you see them in Europe, parties that are interested only in climate change issues and so on and so forth. So therefore the question you asked, I am an interested party because in Uganda now, political parties that are represented in the parliament are all sponsored, at least with some money, some taxpayers' money. But also, we should even be more interested because one of these parties will one day take over power in Uganda. I remember General Muntu in FDC kept saying, you cannot give what you don't have. If you're not democratic internally, you'll never give people democracy.
So how do you score, take for instance, NUP on their recent delegates conference and the Democratic Party?
As I said, I don't want to be general. I don't want to, people will feel hard because I am a competitor. But as I said, and I want to keep it as general as I can, that many of the parties, you hear them at the conclusion of an exercise which you are not sure it took place. Because you hear announcement of dates of a delegates conference, you don't know how people went there. And that's why I said in FDC, we had those elections, we will announce, we will follow. In the PFF where I am, we will have them. And I don't want to blame parties. The Electoral Commission has a duty. Because each party submits a copy of the Constitution at registration. And this election, there was, I'm not sure that it was Kenya or Tanzania. In fact, they had assigned the National Commission to help parties conduct elections. Because these parties are supposed to be regulated. That's why they submit copies of their constitution. So there are parties that you'll hear them organizing a delegates conference, but you don't know where those delegates came from. No elections at a village level, no elections at sub-county level, no elections at any other level, other than at the National Delegates Conference. So there are issues.
Honorable Aisha Kabanda, and I believe this goes directly to the National Inter-Platform. There was a delegates conference that was organized in haste. In just a matter of 1 week after the announcement, people turned up as delegates. Don't you find that rather awkward?
Unless you were part of the organizers, I don't know how we would explain that was organized in haste. What lacked that should have been?
In just a space of 1 week.
Do you know how long we took organizing it?
If you could explain to us.
Okay, maybe you would have asked me to explain, then you make a conclusion. First, let me begin where Honorable Semuju ended. How are these parties registered? Okay, when you talk about the delegates conference, this delegates conference we're talking about, what constitutes membership of that delegates conference? Okay, we took advantage of a situation. The NUP took advantage of the manipulations of the NRM when they registered political parties then, which they thought they were parties they were going to put in the pockets or in the basket somewhere and be able to use them when they desire. Okay? They registered a political party that we know that had a very funny constitution. We all agree the constitution of the political party that we inherited, which was NURP then, N-U-R-P, was a very funny constitution where even the president nominates people to be part of NEC. That's the constitution we inherited. And that's the constitution we have chosen to amend and have it fit the democratic times in which we would like to see and want to live. And what has happened? We've been taken to court, and the Electoral Commission has refused to gazette, actually, our amended constitution. Now, what do people want us to do? To stop working? First of all, what was this delegates conference meant to be? The delegates conference includes the executive board, okay, members of NEC, elected leaders, okay, and elected leaders include members of parliament. It includes municipal mayors, LC5 chairpersons. Now, if the elected leaders of the party that we are talking about now do not spread over the whole country, should we not have our delegates conference until we have them spread over? Because There's no single member of parliament that was meant to attend this delegates conference and was excluded. There's no LC5 chairperson that was meant to attend and was excluded. There's no mayor that was meant to attend and was excluded. Every elected leader that was meant to be part of this delegates conference actually attended. It simply so happens...
Who is a delegate in NUP?
That's what I've just explained. The delegates, first of all, include members of the executive board, okay? Those are the people who were elected, those ones who being elected last when you had the delegates conference, okay? It includes the NEC. NEC includes members of the executive board expanded by appointees of the president. It includes all members of parliament. Now, if we had a political party that had members of parliament that are 300 plus or 500, they would all have attended. It so happens that the members of parliament that we have, they actually, many of them come from Buganda. So when you say it's a regional delegates conference, would we go to borrow people from north and designate them as members of parliament? We wouldn't, okay? So whoever was meant to attend this delegates conference actually attended, save for a few who were not present.
This was billed as an extraordinary delegates conference.
Yes.
What made it extraordinary?
What made it extraordinary is that we actually included members of parliament, elected leaders that would not have been part of this delegates conference. When you look at this constitution, how it had been designed, the Kibalama constitution, it was a political party that was simply meant to depend on individuals. The president appoints people to work with. I am a secretary general, deputy secretary general of the party, and I'm appointed by the president. Even when they made the elections last time, my office is not among those out of whom elections were conducted. No, I'm appointed. Even this time, I assumed office again after being appointed. That's the constitution we have. It's not the one we desire. No, we have actually amended our constitution. But the times of the regime that is now has not given us space to do things the way we want them to be done. So we're not going to sit up. We're not going to sit back and wait and see and fold our arms.
Are you mindful of a clause in the old constitution on which you're operating that says in case of an ordinary delegates conference, notice of at least 14 days in writing shall be given for the convening of the meeting. This requirement of notice shall be dispensed with in the case of an extraordinary delegates conference, except where it is practical to give the notice.
I have not had people complain that a notice was not given. A notice was given. By the way, do you know that we actually run in papers? I think our people have a problem with reading. We even had to run in papers advertisements of people to come and apply for these positions, and it took more than 2 weeks.
No, it was a week. It was a week.
I don't think it was a week.
It was a week.
The first time it ran in Monitor, I think it was much earlier than you think it was. Even the notice boards of the political party, inside our political party offices, or the notice board, we put there that notice. It was there. Everybody knew. On our platforms, they knew there was this delegates conference.
Thank you. Honorable Mbide.
So for me, just to summarize this, people have branded our delegates conference as a funny delegates conference that will, I don't know. For me, I want to know whom do you think we excluded, okay? That was meant to attend, and by manipulation we simply chose to exclude these people because whoever was meant to be part of the delegates conference actually was there.
Honorable Mbide, how would you compare DP's delegates conference that turned out to be a talk of the town for the mess and the flows therein with the NUPs?
Thank you. I don't know how the NUPs was organized. But in Uganda, we no longer have public opinion. Mostly we have got published opinion. And now the publishers are majorly, the majority of publishers in Uganda are those that are not trained in doing so because they are not members of mainstream media. It is usually called social media. So much of the information in Uganda is definitely served by and tainted by social media ludic. You know, persons that definitely will distribute any information pursuant to whether or not they have got smartphones. Smartphones are usually smarter than the owners. So the Democratic Party Delegates Conference had no flaws. However, we had security inconsistencies. And this could be explained. But one thing that I need to explain to the public is what actually was distributed and disseminated on social media. There was some fellow who was voting. You see, our vote, the contested positions were majorly 19. So everybody would be provided with 19 ballot papers, so that each ballot paper then would in seriatim be deposited in the substantive ballot box of the position you are going to vote for. Now, there was this guy who I think videotaped somebody who was dropping one of the ballot papers in the ballot box. But you see, the person video recording can make any unnecessary information disseminated and distributed to the whole world. So somebody says, you know, by the time you can be able to video record freely, and you even remain with your telephone, and you have the same distributed, and there is no mention of any attempts by anyone to stop you from doing the same. In my opinion, I think that is a display of peace that existed during the voting of the Democratic Party. So I can safely tell you, one second challenge
so
was...
it passed the mark of a credible election.
Extremely credible. But what took place in Imbalala, you know, for us, our motto is truth and justice. What took place in Imbalala is the truth. The justice is what will have to be told to us by the courts of law, because those that are disgruntled have definitely run to the courts. So we will expect the justice. One major thing that we shall not tolerate is if the courts have told us what the result was, and you attempt to appeal, that will be an act of indiscipline on our part, and we shall not have any unnecessary delays with you. We will definitely get rid of you. Political parties are not, you know, there is no power in the political parties. Political parties are just wagons taking us to wherever we are going. Wagons are definitely, you know, if you want to drive a wagon to anywhere, it is a function of experience, knowledge, capacity. It is not a function of whether or not there are many people supporting you to drive. It is knowledge. So in Uganda, I think we have got a major problem, Simon. Because you see, when the NRM took power in 1986, the legal notice actually was to the effect that parties were banned. Parties continued to be banned up to the enactment of the 1995 Constitution. Wait, because I'm building a point of political immaturity of the masses in terms of how parties operate. Because there is a problem between independent individual opinion that individuals think remains sacrosanct against a decision of a party. Now, you cannot hold an independent view on a matter that the party has taken a decision on. However, you only hold it until such a time when it has been discussed. And when the party discusses and agrees against you, then the opinion you bear at that stage is whether you can remain in that party against your will or form another.
Okay, with the delegates conference that left the party fractured, because all the contenders came out grumbling, disgruntled that the process was not transparent. Do you look at DP as a party that you can write home about when it comes to matters of internal democracy?
And I think, let me be frank with the viewers, this is usually synonymous with us, players, political players in Buganda. We always make a mistake that usually pities us against 3 major regions. Because in terms of electoral college politics, national, there are usually 4 regions. There is the central region, the eastern region, the northern region, and the western region. Now, what took place in the Democratic Party was the wrong politics played by those that thought that the central region held gladiatorial supremacy over other regions. And accordingly, it determined the result of 1 against 3. That is why they got 300 votes and the others got 900. A position we had never contemplated before heading to the delegates conference. It was a material discrepancy that was lodged at the subconscious level of the brains of those players that made them lose. So there is no problem in the Democratic Party.
Honorable Major retired Chinoberi.
You see, in the question, no, I'm sorry. So what I thought the Honorable Mbide will help us understand are the processes. I have seen NRM militaristic as they are cheating elections. They have some registers. They can be contested, but they are there, so you can follow their process. So that's what for me I want to see in other parties.
I can explain what
the registers are here, so that by the time you go for a delegates conference, the list of the delegates itself is not contested, because people will lose elections and then find the reason.
DPs
but sometimes we give them
on the election day.
No, Simon. If we are to be fair to both the Democratic Party and the public, the Democratic Party does not even need to give you a list of names. Our delegates are embedded in the offices they hold, right from village level to the National Executive Committee. For example,
you didn't need a register.
Members, you need one, you get one, but even if you don't, the members are known. Because if you're chairman of a district, you know you're a delegate. If you're a loser or a winner of a parliamentary election, you know you're a member.
Retired Major Chinoberi.
If you're a member of the National Executive Committee, you know you're a member. So it is very easy.
What do you make of the drama and chaos within political parties as they conduct internal processes?
I don't know why you would want me to qualify it as a drama and confusion, but I just need to share what's happening in the NRM. And then maybe the viewers can decide what they want to call it. First of all of us as parties, we are governed by the principle in the Constitution that power belongs to the people. And they even try to elaborate how we go about it. But the Political Party and Organizational Act describes in detail how organizations that come into power are supposed to do that in a phrase which is called internal democracy. Now, it's about the degree of how you respond to that requirement, and I don't want personal judgment because, for example, PFF is just a new party. Possibly they are right, they have not had that time. Maybe just allow me to give our viewers the status of what the NRM does. The status of what the NRM does is that we have 2 lines of elections. All these geared towards enforcing the other requirement of power belongs to the people. Of course, they are parties with the slogans, people power, what power, they say it and they sing it, but in the actual practice, it's not actually what they do. But we may not
what they preach.
Do sloganeering and preaching, but for us, we may not slogan about people power or people using the power belonging to them, but in practice, ours is a bottom-up arrangement. In our elections, we start with the party structures, and that's why on the 6th of May, we started with the lowest level of setting up our party structures. NRM has got 72,000 political villages, and every village has got an electorate, which is the entire village of members of the NRM. Then we go on to spread our leadership into sectors of the society that we think are important. That is maybe the women, the young people, the elderly, the disabled, the veterans, and all those. And now we constitute a leadership structure at the village, which is 30 members per village. Now, those 30, it's representative now from that level. Because at the village, when you elect the 30 delegates, they go to the parish, they elect another 30 to go to the sub-county, another 30 to the district. We have levels like municipalities until they climax at the city level, which is the equivalent of districts. And from there...
So you want to say you set the bar for eternal democracy?
We set the bar because we practice what we preach. We practice what we preach.
And you're the embodiment of people power, right?
It's the real people power, because we empower the people. It's the real, it's not sloganeering. In actual practice, we allow only that we use a representative, because you know the old forms of democracy would mean that you have all the other Ugandans, the 20 million members in our party, gather them in an arena way, which you cannot even.
Let me hear this again. NRM is the real people
It's the
power.
real concept of people power. The real
The
concept
rest are just sloganeering.
The rest is, well, yes.
Honorable Mbide seems to have a question for you.
No,
Can I take
the point to where he picked it from? Because for him, his delegates conference has already taken place. So I was building it up to where we get the national conference, which is the supreme organ of the delegates conference. So from the districts, we go to the national conference, and that national conference has got conferences of the leagues, which you have mentioned. Only that at the district level, we add on 2 more, the workers and entrepreneurs, because at the village levels, those levels are not fully developed. So by the time you get... I've mentioned the veterans.
They also start from the village.
Yes, even veterans start
I don't know how many veterans we have in the country.
We have a very big number, because we expanded the membership of the Veterans League. At first, we used to have only the veterans who are in the UPDF, but we have extended it to all people who served in the armed forces, retired police officers, retired prisons and all those. So, it doesn't have to, you know, when you create a provision, when you create, for example, I'll give an example. We could have a provision for the disabled. The majority of our disabled, apart from those either who get accidents or in the war, they were disabled as a result of immunizable diseases. Because of improved services around that area, it is very difficult to get disabled people at every village. It was not very easy. By the way, even some veterans who had problems to get them to the village, at the villages, because some villages don't have...
Are you tracking how other parties are doing their things?
What's
your assessment of them?
We're trying, I'm still giving our viewers the structural arrangement of their NRM as a mass party, and the level at which we get the National Delegates Conference. Now, the National Delegates Conference is the one which will generate all the rest of the leaders of the party.
You build from the ground.
From the village, the lowest unit, up to...
There are some positions that are ring-fenced. Some positions, they are not contestable, they are ring-fenced, and he says the people power.
Posts, you let me know
people power, the chairman is ring-fenced, the vice chairman is ring-fenced.
At least you have a structure, unlike those. I know you
started qualifying your statement of people power.
Yes, but you ring first. Okay, let me finish my point. What I'm trying to say that for us, we elect. We don't select leaders.
Who selects?
Most of the parties sit at the top, select those who are going to be in which position. As I speak today, we may not even know who is going to be in the topmost organ of the party, the SEC. Until we get there, we have already gazetted the days of nominations of members who want to be in the Central Executive Committee of the party, and then the rest of the other members.
Is the party chairmanship under contest?
No, not yet.
Is it one of the slots that will be contested?
I want to give you a hint.
Or his vice.
I want to give you a hint that very soon you are going to see people vying for the Central Executive Committee, including those who want to contest as chairpersons of the party. The days have been mentioned. We are on the 26th of this month. We are holding expression of interest of those who want to participate.